What's the strangest dying wish you've heard? My great uncle found out he had cancer and it was really bad. Near the end he was sent home to wait for death pretty much. So he decided to bring all his boys back home to drink a case of his favorite beer under the apple tree he planted as a child at the farmhouse. His ashes are in those bottles under the tree to this day. That's beautiful. No better memory, no better memorial. My geology teacher told us he wants his ashes thrown in the water over Marianas Trench. Apparently it's a subduction zone, and in a few million years he'll become a rock. Living the dream. My dad, cremated and put into a paper bag and then held out the window while drive up HWY 400 in Ontario, until he discovered donating your body to science gets you a free funeral. His best friend, cremated and turned into shotgun shells to be fired on every continent. Oh, and I want a comedy roast in my honor. None of this I'm so sad stuff. I want people to have a good time and laugh at my expense. My buddy wants to have a full bar at his funeral with his coffin as the bar, so everyone can have one last drink on him. I feel it's awfully morbid for a pun. Yeah, gotta add that to my list as well. Anyone who survives me will be killed by that one, metaphorically, and I suppose if they die laughing, that would save on the funeral costs, as we're already having one. My girlfriend is going to a wedding this weekend. The bride has a terminal illness and her dying wish was to get married. That's freaking depressing for the groom. My grandfather wanted to be cremated and put into an old Mickey Mouse Club lunchbox, then hurtled from a bridge in Northern California. The lunchbox opens as soon as the box leaves your hands and the ashes blow in the wind back onto the bridge and into the windows of a school bus, blinding several children and the bus driver, who actually swerves off the bridge. My grandpa Earl heard about a woman who made earrings and other glass art from the ashes of the Mount St. Helens eruption, so he contacted her to ask if she could do the same with his ashes. Amazingly she said yes. So he made plans to have a pair of earrings made for my grandma and his 4 daughters. As his name was Earl, he kept calling them earrings. My grandma and one of my aunts were appalled by the idea, so they came to a compromise. Instead of having his cremated remains made into earrings, he had them made into glass balls. Now every member of our family has their own piece of him. So every time we want to remember Gramps, we just squeeze his balls a bit. My grandma was a very sophisticated lady. She always dressed and acted properly. My grandpa died 4 years before she did, and her health gradually declined after he was gone. She was very sick towards the end, and the doctor gave her a week or 2. Our family was with her in the hospital every day. One morning she woke up demanding we go buy her tennis shoes. Tennis shoes? She never wore stuff like that. She told us she had a dream she was walking with Mel, my grandpa, and it was so far. He told her, if you think this is far, you should wear different shoes after that story. My dad ran out and bought her some Nikes. She died in her sleep 12 hours later wearing them, and was buried in them. I'm not religious, but it gives me goosebumps thinking about the comfort she must have felt, thinking that there was a possibility that death meant reuniting with him. This is my favorite one so far. My great uncle Mel buried me by the mall, so I'm always by the action. My great aunt Helen stick a ham bone up my butt and let the coyotes have me. I never got to go to my grandfather's funeral because I was going on a school trip to DC while he was sick. I told him I didn't really want to go, but he was insistent that I go. We both knew it was getting near his time, but he knew how much I loved history and that I probably wouldn't get a chance for a long time again. That night, while I was on the bus, he died. His last words to me were BGS. Go see the world. I never got to leave this country. I want you to see everything. Not for me. For you. Will do. Grandpa. Will do. Good man. Your grandpa. My great aunt was cremated, and in her will it stated I would like Disco Inferno by the Tramps to play as people are leaving my funeral service. We did it. Burn baby burn. Your great aunt is the greatest troll. I would like for my body parts, arms, legs, head, torso, fingers, to be chopped up and implanted with GPS tracking devices. Those body parts would then be encased in resin and buried in remote areas of the world, places that would require a real adventure to get to. A year later the coordinates would be released online and the first team to reassemble my body wins my estate. What happens when competing teams each have parts and won't work together? I was helping someone write a will. She said she wanted her cat put to sleep and buried with her if she died first. We didn't end up putting that in the will. My dad wants to be buried in a coffin dressed like Dee Snider back in the 80s with the shoulder pads, long hair and all the makeup. My dad wanted to be cremated, have his ashes mixed in paint, and then painted on a helicopter so he could finally fly like a pilot. He was blind for most of his adult life. He died in November, and I'm still trying to figure out how to make this happen for him. Ask the military, they might let you paint him on one of their fighter jets. My mom hasn't kicked the bucket yet, but she has told me, and I quote, "Frick this, everybody be sad balls when I die. You are to throw a party. There will be booze and food and crap, and a DJ. It must be crazy. If the cops don't show up to shut it down, you are a disgrace to me and the entire family. Post an invite on Reddit. They will come. Also, wishing your mom many happy, healthy years left. We need time to prepare." When my uncle passed away he wanted his ashes to be spread in Hawaii to force everyone to have a good time. I'm going to do the same. My dad once saw a grave that said gone, but not forgotten, so he decided that he wants his grave to say forgotten, but not gone to freak out people reading it. My grandpa wanted to be buried with his dog, who had died a month before he did. The dog had belonged to his daughter, who died 10 years before him and had saved his life at one point. The dog was there when she died. Strep throat complications. Bailey was then given to my cousins, but continued to see grandpa on a daily basis. Bailey was a great dog, calm but playful even into old age. When he went, it was like all the fight had gone out of my grandpa, like he knew it was time. R.I.P. Bailey. My dad wants a speaker to play a tape of him saying fun things out of his coffin like, "Pull my finger, smells like somebody died in here," and so forth. My friend's dad told him he wants to be cremated and mixed with flour to make Dave cookies. My dad said he wants to be cremated and have his ashes mixed with paint, and have an artist paint a portrait of him with it. This is the plot to horror film Gingerbread Man starring Gary Busey. Last week I told my dad your sister has some money left over from grandma's funeral. She wants to put it away for you for whenever you die since funerals are expensive and you don't have any money. Do you wanna be buried here or in NJ? He said buried. I don't wanna be buried. Throw me naked in a dumpster with my butt sticking out so the world can kiss it. That's when I knew he'd make a full recovery from his stroke. My final request to my wife for when I pass away is just to make sure she picks out a very nice urn. He replied, "But I don't want you to be cremated." I replied back, "I don't want to be cremated either, so it better be a huge freaking urn." One of my ex-girlfriend's grandfather was a pilot from way back in the Diesel day. He hated me because at the time I had long hippie hair and a beard. I was in a band, and he was the kind of guy that would always wear a suit and tie, and he was always smoking. He had a love of cigars and alcohol, and had enjoyed both through his whole life, and his health was mostly great except for the fact that he was ridiculously old. Anyway, apparently he had told her that when he died, he wanted to be dropped from an airplane, while wearing his old pilot gear, not cremated, just like, flown up into the air, and dumped out of a plane. And all I could think of was some regular person, going around doing their regular thing, when a 90-something-year-old man wearing some old butt pilot suit falls out of the clouds in front of them and ruins their regular day. They didn't do that. That would have been pretty entertaining to watch. My grandmother's last wish was that her ashes be scattered with my grandfather's. My grandfather's last wish was to scattered by his favorite power dam. Apparently he was one of the engineers that designed and built the St. Lawrence Seaway and was pretty attached to it. Unfortunately by the time we got around to scattering them you could no longer access the dam. We didn't quite know what to do so we went to the visitors center to kill some time and try to figure out a new plan. That's when we saw the boat launch. With a couple of us keeping watch, my father and uncle snuck out onto the dock and dumped my grandparents as quickly as they could before anyone came. This proved to be a bit of a challenge since my grandfather had been put in an urn that was not meant to be opened again. I'll never forget my uncle remarking to my aunt, "You should have seen this thing. You practically needed a church key to get that out." TLDR. Grandfather requested he be scattered at a power dam. Got a visitors center boat launch instead. Seems like Saturday Night Live sketch material. This is mine, and in all seriousness, I want to be cremated. Mixed with concrete. Pour said concrete into brick-sized molds. Draw a smiley face into said brick. Let cure and hand out to relatives and friends that want one. I have a list of places that said bricks can be disposed of with my blessing. I have been planning this for years. A friend of mine died in his teens. His family makes clay rocks that they stamp with his name and hand out to pretty much everyone. No ashes involved, but he's all over the world now. So, my dad has said on multiple occasions that he is going to buy a full-size replica of R2D2 and C3P0. Then, before he dies, he is going to have a bunch of pre-recorded messages on each the R2D2 and C3P0. When he does die, he wants to be cremated, and half goes into the R2D2 with me and the other half in C3P0 with my sister, so they can roam around and just randomly talk to us. My stepsister is just crap out of luck. I don't know which would be worse, hearing C3 Pop's voice all the time, or the unintelligible beeps from R2D2 and wondering what message he's trying to send from beyond the grave. From the song Birthday Song by 2 Chainz, "When I Die Bury Me Inside the Booty Club." I don't know how well a strip club would do with a dead dude in it. The owners could use this place is haunted by a ghost cell gimmick that a lot of businesses use. My mom believed in reincarnation, and her dying wish was to not come back as a woman in the Middle East. I'm going to get cremated and have the ashes incorporated into tattoo ink and split my estate by this. Area of me inked into an individual family member. Total area of me inked into all family members x 100 equals percentage of the estate the individual member receives. But don't tell anyone how much there is in the estate. Then when all is said and done they're going to be super P when it's only $100. My stoner buddy wanted to have his ashes sprinkled in the fertilizer dirt of his favorite grow house. His Jesus freak parents wouldn't allow it. They even had the Undertaker people cut his hair very short and shave his beard. I didn't know who the frick he was in his casket. It's one thing to be sad because you've outlived your child, but to deface their corpse is something beyond reprehensible. My housemate wants to be cremated and her remains made into a firework and let off in Madagascar because it's her favorite place, and it gives the rest of the family a nice holiday while sending her off on her way. Really cool idea. At least she'll be safe when a pandemic breaks out. A friend of mine's dad said to my friend, "When I die, I want to be burned and I want you to throw the ashes in the face of your W mother. One last facial. If I'm murdered, I'll be cremated. I will leave a locked box to my closest ally, and the key will be in the jar of ashes. The jar will have a small bottom, and will tip over easily. It will be on display at my memorial service, and the box's holder will be there as well. It tips over, and the key falls out with the ashes. He will see the key, and know. The rest of my ashes will be put in an urn in a padlocked tomb. My friend will take the box home, and open it to find the key to my tomb, and a note. The note is scrawled in ink mixed with my blood, as I was able to write it before I died. It tells him to find my murderer, and to mix some of my ashes into a shotgun shell, and kill him with the shell. Late on a rainy evening, he sneaks into the graveyard, clad in a heavy black trench coat, a ratty black shirt and pants, a wide-brimmed fedora, and black rain boots. He is carrying a small whiskey bottle and a sawed-off shotgun, concealed behind his coat. He finds the tomb, and fumbles with the rusty lock. The Undertaker comes by, and he ducks behind a tombstone and holds his breath. Thankfully, he passes. He eventually gets the lock open, and peers into the tomb. He sees the urn, ominous and pristine. He casually strolls up to it, a shell already prepared. He scoops some of the ashes into the shell. He sighs, and loads the shotgun. He takes one last swig from his whiskey bottle, and breaks it against the wall. He then puts the shotgun in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. A loud bang from my tomb causes the undertaker to come running to it. He notices the open lock and swings open the door. My friend's corpse lies on the floor, his blood decorating the walls. TLDR. Pancake nipples. Did not see that coming. I have already told my family, when I die I want to be shot into space. That way I can fake my own death and see space. If my godmother dies before her dog, she wants the dog put down and buried with her. If the dog dies before her, she wants it buried in the yard. And then, when the time comes, exhumed and re-entered with her. She's very attached to that dog. Poor dog. I want an ancient Brit, Anglo-Saxon, styly burial. I studied archeology and like the idea of being dug up and someone guessing what my life may have been like from my tattoos, teeth and belongings. I may get buried with something really random like a whisk, a slipper and a copy of these, although by then they'd just need to somehow reproduce Facebook and YouTube archives. Oh god, future humans are going to think we're a right bunch of cat worshipping idiots. I asked my daughter to stuff me like a giant bean bag with button eyes so the grandkids could sit on my lap and still play with grandma. That is incredibly creepy. My grandfather requested that his ashes be put in a douche bag for my grandmother to use. He had a fantastic sense of humor. Although we did not follow through with his wish, my grandmother was a good sport, holding his urn between her legs in the car on our way back to her home. She said he could have his fun one last time. My sister once joked that she wanted to be ground up into sausage and fed to poor kids. Joke's on her. I'm gonna do it. Plot twist. By the time she dies, poverty ceases to exist. Frank Zappa requested that he be cremated and his ashes flung in the face of a passerby. Quoting from memory, it was something like that. My aunt has platinum in her brain. She wants us to cremate her and make 3 life gems out of her, to be set in 3 rings made out of her brain platinum. I have been instructed to keep one for myself and give the other 2 to her daughters. My husband would like to be taxidermied on a throne wearing a king custom and to have people photographed with them. I don't see this happening as it is not legal to taxidermy humans, but he has requested it multiple times. He's only 28, so he better not be dying on me anytime soon. You might think your husband is still alive. Nope, he's dead. He's been taxidermized by Chuck Tester, now willing to cross oceans with dead people so your loved ones can legally have the eternity they always wanted. My dying wish is to have my corpse decay into a skeleton, and then have all my bones glued together in an epic pose with me wielding a sword and shield. I've told my wife that I want to be cremated and my ashes made into a garden gnome. Each year, my descendants can repaint me in a manner of their choosing, until my great-grandson accidentally drops me, at which time I can be tossed into the dustbin and be done with. Songs for the funeral, Monkeys Gone to Heaven by the Pixies and Secret of Life by the Dead Milkmen. My grandma is originally from Japan, but her and my grandpa have lived in California since the 1970s. Their dying wish is to mix their cremated remains together and then to release them into the Pacific Ocean. That way some of them could travel back to Japan and some can stay in California. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.